Hey 4xe fans, it is October 18th, and yesterday, October 17th, the letters started going out to those 4xe owners, both Grand Cherokee and Wrangler 4xe owners, who are going to be affected by this 95B recall. And if you aren't familiar, the 95B recall has to do with the separators in the battery and the potential for them to break down and lead to a fire. So obviously, an investigation into some of these fires, and there haven't been that many, by the way. There have been something like 13 incidents, and I don't know that every one of those was an actual fire, or if in some cases the battery's just off-gassed and caused a lot of smoke. I don't know the answer to that. I have heard that not all 13 were fires. I don't know that for sure. But I know personally, I've been in contact with two people who have had actual fires and the Jeep is just burned up. And unfortunately, those were directly related to the battery and the thing breaking down. And in both of those cases, the Jeeps had not received the 04B recall, which has been billed as a defrost recall, unfortunately, by Jeep. But it includes all of the same software updates that the B9A recall, which had to do with the battery fire issue. And so some people are tending to blow the 04B recall off because they think it's a defrost recall, and they will just deal with that when they get their oil changed or something else later on. And I've even heard some people say, oh, I'm not getting it because it's going to cause issues. I'm going to get a check engine light, which is another misunderstanding of what's going on. Some people have received an update and then immediately got a check engine light, and it's a P0BBD code, and they feel like the recall caused the code to happen, but what was actually happening, the issue was there already, and the software updates freed up that situation to communicate better and actually throw the code where that's impossible before, which is what has caused a couple people to have fires. They didn't know that their battery was having an issue because it wasn't throwing any codes, and they had just decided, I'll do that, defrost recall later. Unfortunately, fire resolved it. So it's important to get those recalls done, but it's also important to be checking your mail to see if you're on the 95B recall list and understand what is asked of Jeep. I don't know if I should say required, but what is asked of Jeep is that you do not charge it and you do not park it in a structure of any kind. And there's been some people that have disagreed about that and said, well, I don't see that anywhere. It's in the documentation on the NHTSA website. If you go to NHTSA.gov and search for the 95B recall, you can find that information. And if also, while you're at NHTSA, you can put in your VIN and see if you're on the recall list. You don't have to wait for the letter. But just know that the letters started going out yesterday, and I already saw this morning in the 4xe fans Facebook group where somebody has already received their letter. So it's happening now. As of today, as of October 18th, there is no fix available or any remedy available to the dealership. So don't call the dealership and ask them if you can schedule the recall to be done. Save that phone call because they don't have the remedy yet. It'll say parts unavailable. We don't know for sure that there will be parts involved, but when you see parts unavailable, that just means there's no remedy for the recall. What Jeep and Stellantis are hoping is that there will be a software flash that will tell them if the battery has the issue that they're looking for in the breaking down of the separators. I personally have my concerns about that, and trying to understand how a software flash can determine that or not. I'm sure it has something to do with resistances and voltages maybe leaking a little. I mean, I'm sure there's some true electronic science about it, and I can understand that. But I still have my concerns that's going to be done well. So that's just me personally. That's my personal opinion. Because, there were a lot of Jeeps after the B9A recall. There were a lot of Jeeps that made it through the B9A recall in the 2 sleep cycles if they were done appropriately by the dealership, which is another issue altogether. But there were Jeeps that made it through those 2 sleep cycles only to turn around a couple months later, throw a P0BBD code, and end up getting a battery replaced. So I just have questions on how those tests are done, because we have just seen in the 4xe fans Facebook group that a lot of Jeeps made it past B9A without any issues. And a lot of Jeeps, as soon as they got the 04B recall later, threw a code. So and those Jeeps were not on the B9A recall list. So there were a lot of them that once they got the 04B, found that they had this issue. And my question is, why were those Jeeps not on the original B9A if they have this issue? So I hate to say it, I don't know that I trust the process. And that's just from watching what's going on in the community that I say that. And I don't mean to harsh anyone, not trying to be nasty towards anyone. It's just observations that we have made that lead me to question these testing processes. And that's even without the dealerships not understanding how those test processes are supposed to be done to begin with. So there's just, I don't know, there's all sorts of things there. If you follow this channel, you might have seen that I had a P0BBD code and I have a new hybrid battery in here, yet I am on this current 95B recall too. So don't misunderstand that just because you've received a new battery, it doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't on this list, because accompanying 95B was a 96B recall that was basically there to grab all those batteries out of the supply chain that were manufactured in this time window where this possible separator issue is going on, and get them out of the supply chain. Unfortunately, several of us received batteries that were manufactured in that time window before the 96B issue came about. Now, I also would like to add, it seems to me like Jeep knew about this issue and knew it was coming. The investigation was going on before this battery was installed. So I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed that a now possibly defective battery was installed, and at the time frame it was installed within, there was already an understanding that there was a separator issue going on. So I know big companies, it's how things work and things just happen that way, so I get it. But it is kind of frustrating to know that I'm possibly going to have to get a third battery installed at some point, when I'm already struggling. If you've watched some of my previous videos, I'm already struggling with the amount of time this vehicle has spent in the shop in its lifetime already. So it is frustrating, and I get, some owners, they're just done. They're just walking away. And unfortunately, there were a lot of new to Jeep owners that were buying the 4xe. And I would be curious how many of those new to Jeep owners are simply now done with Jeep and will move back to another manufacturer. So I think it's really unfortunate for Jeep, especially given what's going on right now with all the questions about the, just poor sales and poor performance across the Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram line. It's just unfortunate that Jeep now has people who have a sour taste in their mouth about the product and will probably not buy another Jeep because their first Jeep experience just wasn't that good of one. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. The video's getting too long anyway. So just wanted to share that those letters are in the mail if you haven't heard, and to be watching your mailbox for that, and check NHTSA.gov, or I'd say both, check Mopar.com. There's a place you can plug in your VIN and see if you're on the recall list. Thanks for watching.